Okay, so we're live now. Let me do a Cantonese introduction first. OK，今日咧，我哋就好榮幸，我哋請到咧畢山湯，咁佢係中文名佢叫唐畢山，其實佢係一位導演啦、監製啦同埋電影製作員，咁其實佢就係有華人血統，亦都係出身於英國嘅。咁咧B 站咧，佢就喺舊年啦，其實我哋都有留意到咧，其實就有一套電影，咁其實就係由關智斌同埋李思華主演嘅一套錄影帶。咁錄影帶呢一套戲咧，其實係一套都幾出名嘅戲，其實係2001年咧，由同一套戲其實亦都係由當時導演 Richard Linklater 咧就去做一個導演嘅。咁2024年嘅呢一套咧，就係一套由B 站嘅一個重製。咁因為B 站唔識講中文，所以我哋今日嘅訪問係會用英文進行嘅。All right, good afternoon, Bijan.
Good afternoon.
And thank you very much for coming, for showing up today. And but I've just done a little bit introduction about you, but I guess you can do a little bit introduction about yourself as well, about your background, what you do.
Certainly. So I'm Bijan Tong. I run Phoenix Waters Productions. I'm a filmmaker. My focus is about bridging East and West. So it's about what can we do to bring Asian culture, Asian stories, Asian talent to international audiences, and really showcase and hopefully elevate Hong Kong cinema in the sense that for international audiences in the UK, in the US, and so on. 20 years ago, people kept talking about Hong Kong cinema, Hong Kong movies, the actors, and so on. But it felt from the last few years that the attention on the Hong Kong entertainment industry has diminished. And that's not because of the talent, it's not because of the films, it's more a case of the interest has shifted to South Korea. And the industry as a whole in Hong Kong has changed in terms of its focusing on mainland China in other regions. So what I want to do is see how can we bring about those stories in Hong Kong and showcase the crew, showcase the talent, and enable more interest, international interest, to be placed on the entertainment industry in Hong Kong. And the last few years has been exactly that. I literally, the day before my birthday in 2019, I left my job at Barclays. I was already making movies at the time, but I also had a finance job. And then I left 1 month later, July 2019, I moved to Hong Kong, which was definitely an interesting period. And then since that time, it's been about stories to tell. So we've been making movies there. We did a crime series, Forensic Psychologist, and then most recently I've made Tape. And yes, it's been a very exciting and absolute joy working in the industry in Hong Kong, working with such phenomenal actors and talent, both in front of and behind the camera.
Right. So how long have you lived in Hong Kong?
Well, since I would say about 5 years, pushing on 6. Although I would say the first 4 years, I was essentially almost always based in Hong Kong. And now I tend to fly back and forth depending on what I'm up to.
Right. So it was only 5 years ago. So, but obviously you were born in Britain, right?
Yes. Yeah. Born in London, Chinese father, Persian mother.
Right. So what made you want to do this job, and what made you want to promote the culture or promote the idea of East meets West?
I think it comes down to cultural heritage in the sense that growing up, I watched a lot of Hong Kong movies, and my father loved still Hong Kong cinema. So he would introduce me to his films. As a child, he would be showing me films from John Woo. I was probably too young for it, but I enjoyed them anyway. From Stephen Chow and so on. And then as I grew older, of course, you've got the films from An Hui, Wong Kar-wai, and so many other, Benny Lam and so on, so many other great filmmakers, Ringo Lam and so on. So it enabled me to discover the different facets of Hong Kong cinema. And of course, you can see that many other filmmakers today are still influenced by it. They still look at the past. I would argue, the John Wick franchise and so forth all owe something to the great action cinema in Hong Kong. So I wanted to really delve into that further. And that was actually in 2019, I was in LA shooting a film there, that I realized that audiences were shifting towards Korean content.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like most people, I grew up watching Hong Kong cinema, but I can't name a single recent Hong Kong movie, as in that has really transported internationally. I can't name the actors. When people in the West talk about Hong Kong actors, they still talk about Jackie Chan and Donnie Yen and so forth. essentially anyone below the age of 50 is pretty much unknown in the international market. And so I thought it doesn't mean that the actors there aren't good. It's really a case that we're just not paying attention to the actors. We need to know who are the talent for today. And so that really inspired me to want to go to Hong Kong, to explore it, to learn about the stories being told today, the culture, and see what can we do to support the industry and enable a new generation of talent to be discovered overseas.
Right. So, in your opinion, what is the reason of Hong Kong losing focus on international market?
I think during my experience operating with the industry, I would say one of the issues is it's very fragmented. So when I talk to producers there, essentially I can label them into three sectors. So there's one sector segment which will say we are focused on mainland China. That is our audience. We will co-produce there, we'll get co-investment there, and so on. They are entirely focused on that. They are not looking at the international market. And that's fine. That's their passion. That's where they want to focus on. So that's one. Then you've got the second, which is we want to focus entirely on the local industry, only on Hong Kong, and maybe the region within Taiwan and Malaysia and so on. But that also means that it's not traveling beyond a certain region. It will remain within the Far East, within Asia. And then there's a third segment, I would belong to that, which is we want to tell these stories, but we want them to really resonate with audiences internationally. And when I think about the films I watched growing up, again, those films had universal themes. When someone watches In the Mood for Love, it's very much a Hong Kong movie, but people around the world can connect with the characters. It's a beautiful, tragic story. Just as the movies from John Woo, with Hardball, The Killer, Bullet in the Head, and so on, all of those action films, again, resonate with audiences overseas. So it was really a case of wanting to find those stories with universal themes, stories where we can showcase, Hong Kong talent. We can work with Hong Kong crew. We can make the film in Cantonese, and people will still want to watch it internationally.
Will they?
Well, I'm hoping so. It's been, I would say, has helped to showcase that in terms of the interest to receive the positive reception and so forth. And I want to continue to do that, whether it's, when we're bridging East and West, some of them will be fully Cantonese, some will be a mixture of Canto and English and so forth. But I always feel that the language itself is a very beautiful one. It's a very complex one. I still need to learn it properly. But it's 9 intonations. I'm reliant on my translators. But at the very same time, I feel that if we lose sight of that, if we lose sight of its identity, if we lose sight of its language, it doesn't feel like a Hong Kong movie anymore. And I don't want to lose that. That's also why I love working with the local populace. It's, when I made Tape, the crew, the talent, they're all primarily from Hong Kong. And it wasn't a case of I mustn't work with that person because they don't speak English. I want to work with them because they're great at what they do. And that's the only thing that matters to me.
Right. So does that actually raise a question? So you told me that you watch a lot of Stephen Chow movie when you're little because your father showed them to you.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't speak Cantonese. So I would assume for someone who don't really speak Cantonese, if he would really struggle to understand the context or the funny point in the Stephen Chow's movie. So how did you like those movies? Were they Cantonese movie or an English version of Stephen Chow's movie?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point you've made, because when we're looking at comedy, especially comedy, there's a cultural nuance there. And so what audiences in Hong Kong find funny, international audiences might not. The same is true in Korea. So I will watch a Korean comedy. Some of them I love, and some of them, the jokes fly past my head. And even when I had a conversation with Netflix Asia, they even told me one of the reasons why they themselves have shifted more to Korea and Japan is because Hong Kong audiences love Korean comedy and Japanese comedy and so on, but Japanese audiences and Korean audiences aren't really watching Hong Kong comedies because of the cultural differences. Now, in the case of Stephen Chow, he manages to reach international audiences because his comedies are universal. It's a combination of both Looney Tunes kind of comedy, in fact, it's very slapstick, the stuff that you see from the Three Stooges or Charlie Chaplin, or as I said, the Looney Tunes, or he spoofs. He's great at spoofing, whether it's cookery or spy movies or so on. I mean, and we see those spoofs happening all the time in the US and UK. Most recently was the Naked Gun reboot with Liam Neeson, or of course there was Austin Powers in the past. People like those very silly, we're just there to be entertained comedies, and Stephen Chow does a great job doing that.
Right. Yeah, he's I don't think we will see another Stephen Chow in any near future.
Yeah.
But how do you see the future of Hong Kong movies?
I think it's an interesting area that it's in. It's a fork in the road, because we have seen in the last few years the number of movies being made in Hong Kong has reduced, and also the budgets have reduced. So we're seeing filmmakers struggling to get their stories told, to get their stories made, and having to do it at a fraction of what they used to do. And I think that's very worrying. That's very concerning. That is also why I've been meeting with investors around the world. In fact, I've partnered with financiers in the UK, in Dubai, and South Korea, with the intent of seeing how we can invest in Asia, including Hong Kong. So we've been meeting with various companies in Hong Kong, and funnily enough, Bingo, Stephen Chow's company, is one of the companies we've been engaged with to see what can be done to support the industry. Because I feel if we continue to go down, depress the budgets and so on, it will cause not the death of the industry. I don't think Hong Kong film will die, but it will become very difficult and challenging to create the new or support the new generation of filmmakers. So my view is we need to be doing something drastic, which is we need to be really supporting the cultural element of Hong Kong, the industry, go out, turn out and watch those movies. But also the films that are being made need to have some level of commerciality to them to enable them to be seen by international audiences. I don't mean about selling out, it has to be English language and so on. That's not it. Like Tape is not that. It's more a case of noting who the audience is, who is going to watch a film. If your movie is about the garbage dumps in Sha Tin, then it's going to be a very limited audience watching it. But if it's something that can resonate with audiences more, and last year, The Last Dance is exactly an example. We're dealing with death. We're dealing with every country in the world. Every culture deals with that. It's different to how it's done in Hong Kong, of course, but we all deal with funerals and so on. So it's something that will resonate with audiences, and those are the kind of stories that should be told. So that's what I want to see. That can we greenlight and make more movies which deal with stories and themes that can appeal to people beyond just Asia, and I think that will enable more investment to come in. And then working, with from a organizational standpoint, one of the things I've noticed is that 20 years ago, Hong Kong cinema was easily accessible by audiences in the West. And there was a company called Tartan Films, and they released Johnny To's Election, they released Infernal Affairs, they released all these movies that we all know of, the classics. And they no longer exist. And unfortunately, the films being released right now by distributors, they tend to just release it in a small number of places. They don't really do any marketing. It feels like it's killing the industry, because that money should be going back to the local industry, but it's not because of the deal terms and so on. And so I want to be working with companies who actually have the best interests of Hong Kong at heart. And that's why Tape is being distributed by Showwalker, by Linus Leong's company, who cares about Hong Kong. He's from Hong Kong. And so he cares about the film's value and about ensuring that it can be done to promote and support the industry. And so that, I think, is essential in what can be done to really boost international interest in Hong Kong cinema. And by doing so, boost interest and support in the local industry as well.
Right. So ultimately, that's a supply and demand issue. But I think you raise a very good point, is that we really have to produce more Hong Kong movie that can actually cause a resonance amongst the Western people. It's a funny thing you raised the example of The Last Dance, because The Last Dance, we arranged a screening with Linus, with Showwalker last year as well. And we know that movie was received positively, and it was very popular amongst the Hong Kong community. But I did not know how does it do amongst the Western society? Did the British people like it, or did the American like it? What was it in America?
I would say, no, it's a good question. I would say The Last Dance, did well financially in the UK by some box office figures. It still didn't capture British or mainstream British public in the way that it could have. The same is true for Trials of the Warriors, which was a huge success. It's an action movie. It's expected to be something that's very commercially engaging. But I blame that more on the way that it's marketed. I think one of the differences between how films are marketed today and how films were marketed 20 years ago is when a new Hong Kong movie came out, or a Korean movie or a Thai movie, it became the buzz that you have to watch it. It wasn't said you have to watch a Hong Kong movie. It was you have to watch this movie. It's really interesting. It's unlike anything you've seen. And so I think that was quite essential in really building that that interest. Now here today, when these movies are being marketed, they're not even talking to the Western public. They're just saying, this is a great new Hong Kong movie. I also think that there's a concern in that sometimes there's a misunderstanding that if you're Asian, you'll just watch any Asian movie. As in, if you're from Hong Kong, you watch Thai movies and Korean and Malaysian and everything. That's stupid. It's like saying that, I'm British, I'm going to suddenly watch every single German and Polish and Spanish European.
That has always been the case. When you talk about Asian in this country, people assume we're talking about Indian, and when we say Asian food, it means Chinese mixed with Vietnamese, Thai, with a little bit of curry on it, and probably with kimchi on the side. That has always been the case, and I think when it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, people still know where Hong Kong is, but I think nowadays there are actually a lot of young people. They actually think Hong Kong is in Japan. So so when you tell them, all right, well, let's watch a movie from Hong Kong, then do they speak Japanese?
It just means very simple, misassumptions, and you're absolutely right. And there were great movies which feature both Hong Kong and Japanese actors, and was crossovers, but or regional crossovers, I should say. But for the most part, Japan, which is a very exciting industry, have their own talent, have their own stories, and Hong Kong has its own. And we really need to be celebrating Hong Kong cinema. We need to be celebrating the stories that can and should be told.
Right. So I think that's definitely the case. So, and that is also the case when we talk about cultural integration in this country. So obviously we can see the Korean culture and the Japanese culture has a lot of influence in this country. But when we talk about the Hong Kong influence nowadays, we still, I think a lot of British people or the Western people still think the Hong Kong culture means the food, because they love the Chinese food and they love the Hong Kong food. But it seems to me that other than that, there isn't much for us to tell. I think, particularly on the cultural side, whether it's movie, it's music, or artwork, all sorts of performance, I think we have a declining influence in this country. So what do you think we can do with that? Because obviously you have a lot of connection with Hong Kong, and for people in our age, we actually witnessed the decline of Hong Kong's influence, cultural influence in the world, and that's why people think Hong Kong is in Japan. But is there something from your perspective, is there anything we can do to actually save that?
I think that it's about adapting to a new era, to a new contemporary audience. We know of its successors. We talk about the golden age of Hong Kong cinema, or even the arts and the cultures. It's not just movies. We know about that. We celebrate the works of Leslie Chong, of Anton Mui, and so on. But we're not looking to the future in the way that we should, at least from a cultural standpoint. As much as we're seeing technology and so many exciting things happening in that space in Hong Kong, the reality is that we are not vocal about what is going on in Hong Kong. I mean, literally, we've got the new stadium, the new Kai Tak Stadium, and you've got these amazing Coldplay and Blackpink and so forth performing them. It's something to be excited about, celebrating, and we should be more vocal about the positives that exist. I do feel in the UK that it's really about creating events and so forth, but it's about the communities gathering together. It shouldn't be fragmented. It should be one that is very much supportive and collaborative, and looking past differences and focusing on what one is proud of. And of course, without delving into politics, so one of the things that I identified in 2019 while I was there was that regardless of what side one was on, they all were on the belief that it was about the future cultural identity of Hong Kong. And they were all passionate about their region. They were all passionate about their city. Now, they had differences in terms of which direction it should go, but there was no denying that they both sides loved their region in the belief that they held. Now, I think that here in the UK, with many people having moved here, or many people being established here for many, many years, there's a great opportunity about, looking at where we are aligned and where we are supportive of our belief for the future of Hong Kong. And everyone wants to see it grow, to see it thrive. And we should be showcasing that. We should be underscoring that. We should be celebrating our new generation of talent in music, in film, in theatre. We should be celebrating the Olympics players and our sports players and so forth. And of course, the various achievements which are being held. And of course, we've got various festivals. You've got the Mid-Autumn Festival and so on. Let's be doing that, but let's also invite and bring in people from other cultures. I would also say, from different UK governments and so forth, just to create a better understanding. Because I think by doing that, you can create more support. And literally 2 weeks ago, I was in Parliament. I was having a meeting with former Culture Secretary and former Deputy Prime Minister, Sir Oliver Dowden, to discuss exactly that. We were discussing what I've been doing in Hong Kong, and we're discussing how do we strengthen the ties between the UK creative sector, the Middle East creative sector, and the Asian creative sector, in particular Hong Kong. And it wasn't about going into politics. It was more about the identifying the creative element and how both sides, both regions, can support each other. Because both the UK, the British, and the Hong Kong creative industries are suffering. There are many challenges afoot. But by collaborating and strengthening their ties at a time when things have been tougher in North America, it can create new opportunities for the cast and the crew in both regions. And I think that is where I can see more support being held, and some that can actually meaningfully, not just verbally saying it, but meaningfully support in the creation of jobs, in the creation of new projects, of movies, and support the industry to rise again.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to really improve an industry, you really need investments, and which means you need a lot of money. But I think the problem with Hong Kong is that in recent years, a lot of production they are actually produced with Chinese capital. That itself is not necessarily a problem, but the problem is, for example, if we take Korea or Japan as an example, they have invested a lot in their own creative industry. So they have massive productions, and they can create really famous production that is very popular around the world, and they can really tell the culture. They can really exert the cultural influence to the rest of the world. The problem with the Hong Kong investment is that it involves a lot of money from China, and the point is, there is a cultural difference between mainland China and Hong Kong. So when we have a Chinese investor and a Hong Kong investor co-investing in to co-produce a movie, sometimes they will have to adapt, or you have to change the content of the production just to fit the cultural taste of the mainland Chinese audience. Then in that case, we won't be able to really promote the very Hong Kong culture. But at the same time, if we rely on only local investment in Hong Kong, I don't think a lot of people are actually investing other than Louis Koo nowadays.
No, you're right. And something I regularly tell people in Hong Kong is the fact that the industry in a way is standing on the shoulders of Louis Koo is not something to be excited about. It's something to be terrified of. I admire greatly Louis Koo. Koo Tin Lock, I think what he's done phenomenal. He's a beacon of hope in Hong Kong. He's a great actor as well. But I think he himself would agree that he would not want to be the only pair of shoulders holding it. He would want more support. He would want other filmmakers, other producers, other investors to be coming on board. And so I've also been focusing on that part. Literally earlier this year, I was at the Harvey Hotel in Wanjai, giving a talk exactly on film investment, on that, and how Hong Kong film investment is different to investment in movies in the West. Now, some of it comes from government support. In the UK, it's arguably the most competitive place, or one of the most beneficial places for shooting in, because of the rebates and various supports that exist from government. The same is true in South Korea. I mean, soft power is important to the Korean government, and they are giving a lot of support. And I work with South Korea quite extensively. In Hong Kong, we don't quite see that. Literally, I could be talking to someone and I'm saying, look, we want to do this in Hong Kong. What can be done there? And the response would be shoot it in Dubai or talk to Malaysia and so on. It's and this is from government officials. So it shows that if you're not even supporting your own region and you're telling me to shoot it somewhere else because the benefits there are better, then how can you expect the local industry and the local investors to believe in Hong Kong cinema? So that needs to be addressed. But then that comes down to how films are structured financially. And in Hong Kong, I believe 85% of films made in Hong Kong don't make their money back.
Right.
So as an investor, why would you do that? You can say you're investing in it to support the arts, but it would be better if an investor came in, supported the arts, made some money to support again. So right now we're seeing a shrinking investor pool. And that's what I'm trying to reverse. And part of that comes down to how do we structure it in a way that mitigates, that limits the risk for investors while enabling us to make Hong Kong movies. And that's actually doable. What I do is I talk to investors from around the world, in the Middle East, in Korea, in Malaysia, in the UK, in the US, and so on. And we structure it in a way whereby they invest in a project, in a Hong Kong movie, and they might, for example, take a territory in their region. So if you're a Middle Eastern investor, we'll give you the rights for Middle East and so on, if you're talking to a distribution company. And we provide some equity and so forth. That also enables them to limit their risk, while at the same time they don't need to make the entire budget back. They just need to make their piece of investment back. Whereas right now with Hong Kong movies, you might have, let's say, 7 Hong Kong family offices investing in a movie, but they all know that most of the money they'll make comes out of Hong Kong. So they're all dependent on the Hong Kong box office, which is not doing well for local movies, which means the risk is too high. And that's what we need to change. If we can reduce the risk in Hong Kong, in the Hong Kong box office, and enable it to play out financially better in other regions, then it will actually be appetizing to investors making movies in Hong Kong. And it's doable. It's very much possible because I've seen that happen. But I hope we can replicate that model with other companies. I would love to see other companies like One Call, like Golden Scene and so forth, adapting that because it benefits them. They don't have to they don't have to take such big risks. And I say that as someone who was literally in Korea last December and with an investor I'm working with, and we were in Itaewon at a party, and then this man comes up to me, who's been talking to my friend, and he shows me a picture of Louis Koo. He says, "Do you know this man?" And I say, "I know of him. I don't know him personally." And he says, "I'm his LP. I'm in his investor." It's like, oh, good to know. So I want to be exactly seeing that these investors are benefiting, that they can see that Hong Kong cinema is worth investing in, so that they continue to do it, so that they have more faith in the industry, and therefore more companies around the world will come in and invest in Hong Kong cinema.
And I assume tape is doing quite well financially?
Yes, yeah. Again, that's part of the way we structured it. Because in the case of tape, at the time we made the film, NFTs were the craze. And so what I did was I approached a tech company. I did not approach the public. I approached a tech company and sold them NFT image rights for half the budget. So that's automatically something that's half the budget's covered. I don't need to make the money back there because they've got the NFT rights. And then the other half, we structure it in different ways with different deals around equity, around brand sponsorship and so forth. So that helped mitigate the risk significantly. And then when we're talking to distributors, there's something called MG, minimum guarantee. So a company will give you money to take the rights, license the rights to release it in their territory. And so, for example, we actually sold the film to China, despite the subject matter. And so the film is right now going through its censorship schemes and so forth. However, we have already gotten paid, the MG it's a Beijing company, to do that. That further mitigated risks so that we can move into profitability. And that's the thing. It's as a result, it means that we don't have to worry so much. The entire film is not dependent on the opening weekend's box office. In fact, all of that counts as a bonus. Anything that's successful is fantastic because it sends a positive message to other investors to be investing in Hong Kong movies, whether it's my own or other filmmakers in Hong Kong. Other Hong Kong filmmakers can use the success of Tape to say, look, there is still breath, there is still energy, there is still life in Hong Kong films, and hopefully we can see that more effectively happen.
Right, but at the same time, of course, you have structured it financially and very well. So it was very well structured, and so the risk was mitigated. But at the same time, you pick a very great movie, and I think it's a very brilliant idea to remake that film instead of making something from scratch that may or may not resonate amongst the Western culture. But you remade a film that was very popular like 20 years ago. So I think that probably that will be a direction for future filmmakings.
It's an interesting question because you're right. I mean, when you're looking at remakes, IP, intellectual property is something that does help, and we know everyone's looking at manga and anime and things to adapt. But I would still say it's still about the story. It was, yes, Richard Linklater exec producing it was a huge thing in terms of you got a very well-known Hollywood filmmaker coming on board a Cantonese production of his own movie, and the support received was phenomenal. But at the same time, last year there was another remake of a Hollywood movie. I don't remember the name of the Hong Kong title, but it was called the original film was called The Negotiator. And the new remake, I think it starred Francis Ng. I have to check, but I believe Herman Yao directed that one. So that was a remake of that film. Now, most people don't know it was a remake of that movie. But yeah, you had, in fact, that film coming out as well. In our case, we involved the original US team, which is a bit different. This other film, they made it themselves in Hong Kong. But, we see these remakes happen all the time. I think what matters most is that the story, of course, needs to be executed well. The acting, the performance, the film itself needs to be good. But also the themes need to feel universal. In the case of Tape, it's I believe, the first ever Me Too movie, Hong Kong Me Too movie. But what I realized was that this story needed to be told. That people around the world unfortunately have those experiences. But I was very keen in exploring what it's like in Asia when something like that happens, and look at the cultural implications there. And so, because of that, it's created something that people are resonating with in other countries. In the UK, in the US, in Canada, in various other regions, in Barcelona. The reviews reception has been very positive because the subject matter itself is something that everyone can identify with.
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think it should be the future of Hong Kong movie. Like, you really take into consideration foreign concepts and foreign cultures instead of if we take on too much Chinese influence. That doesn't mean it's problematic, but sometimes the target audience is different. So and if you take on too much Chinese investment, you lose uniqueness.
Yes, no, you're right. It's where your source of funding coming from, and does that have influence? Is where catch-20, is a something attached to that. If you're taking Chinese investment, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it impacts the stories that you're going to tell, then of course you have to be mindful that you might not be able to tell all the stories that you want to tell. And I feel it's important to still keep the language of Hong Kong cinema. That's something unique to its own, to its region. We look at projects with China, but those projects, if I was looking at one today, but those projects are strictly with China. And then there are other projects where I just don't feel that it would be appropriate to be seeking mainland funding, only because that will shift the story that is going to be told. Who are you going to cast? Who is going to direct it? What are you allowed and what are you not allowed to put in? And so it becomes the story that wasn't the intended one you wanted to make. When you're looking again at Hong Kong movies, at the films like Stuntman last year by the one for Albert and Herbert Long, there's some great stories being told and being made in Hong Kong, and I would want to see that support continue. I would want to see these filmmakers receive support to continue to make their local stories, to showcase that culture. And in honesty, I think that regardless of the events that have occurred in the last few years, I think it would be in China's best interest that Hong Kong retain that unique element of its culture. I mean, it's considered to be the bridge or the gateway to the mainland, but also culturally, you want Hong Kong to be distinct. Like, why should Hong Kong be like Shenzhen or Beijing or Shanghai, Hunan? They're all their own distinct provinces. Hong Kong special administrative region is its own region. It tells its own story, and it needs to continue to do that, to be identified as Hong Kong.
Right. I really appreciate that. But is there someone else doing something similar to what you are doing?
That's a good question, in that one of the reasons why I felt that I could be successful at what I'm doing is because when I was looking at the region, I realized those who are trying to bridge East and West, they tended to work on action films. So it's the likes of Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal and so on. And I do action as well, but the people I tend to engage with in the West are those who have the BAFTAs, the Oscars, the Golden Globes. And I felt my network and who I collaborate with, who I know, would enable us to create projects of a certain quality that could help resonate again with the international market. It's no longer low-budget action films, but a case whereby we can really showcase the talent, both in front of and behind the scenes. Yes, you're targeting awards, yeah, but also reach a larger crowd, a larger audience, because the people who are involved have that track record in the West. I mean, even with Tape, Steve Belber, who wrote the original story and co-wrote the remake with me and Bonnie Loh and Selena Lee, he himself is the creator of a Netflix series which came out a few months ago called The Madness, starring Colman Domingo, who was nominated for Best Actor Oscar this year and last year. So we were talking about people who are very, very exceptional at their work. They're known for that, getting involved in Hong Kong cinema. And that is why we feel our stories can be elevated and enable great attraction. But yes, there are other companies that are looking to do the same. I think any company looking to bridge East and West is welcome. We need more of that. We need more support.
Right. So you were born in Britain. So I would say you would call yourself a British, right?
Yeah.
So from your perspective, when you use the phrase East meets West, what does East means to you?
It's a good question. East meets West. I mean, East can encapsulate a lot. Yeah. Arguably, Australia counts as East. But, I consider it to be a specific part of Asia. So I would say when we're looking at Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, yes, I said earlier before that we shouldn't be lumping them all in one. But I feel that the different cultural aspects of these regions reflect the East. Whether it's the exotic nature or family mindset and so forth, but I consider that to be East, and it's really showcasing that the cultures within those regions as being East and West. So less Australia and more. Hong Kong,
they were British.
Yeah.
they may get offended, but they were British.
We were. Yes, you're right.
Right. So I think that's a very great piece of sharing session. And as a last word, do you have anything to tell Hong Kongers who have emigrated from Hong Kong to the UK?
I think that for those who've immigrated in recent years, there are tremendous opportunities afoot. What I've learned during my time in Hong Kong is the skill sets are extraordinarily high. I mean, your education system is fantastic. I'm very proud of my British education system as well, but I'm very impressed by what happens there. That also means that when we see immigration happen from any country, any region, there's a challenge in that for many, they're not moving into the profession that they once held in Hong Kong. And I want to see that shift. I think more support in terms of more community support is essential. And there are great community organizers here in the UK who can support so that people who are accountants can find opportunities for accountancy work or lawyers in legal work and so forth. And the same is true for the creative industry. One of the things I am very, very keen to do is to see that people from the film industry and in the entertainment industry in Hong Kong who have now moved to the UK can continue what they do. And so it's really about finding those opportunities. And I think that because of your skill sets being so high, there should be plenty of them. What needs to be done is to, just as I'm trying to do with Hong Kong entertainment, is to shed a spotlight on the Hong Kongers here and the talent here so that more people are aware of them, aware of the work that they're doing, so that they can have more opportunities to be working in their fields, in the creative industry right here in the UK.
Do you know anyone from Hong Kong that can actually get back into the creative industry in this country?
Sorry, any people in Hong Kong who are in the creative industry or were and
who were and can continue their career here? Because you just said a lot of people they struggle in getting back to the same industry after they immigrated. But is there someone working in the creative industry in this country? Any Hong Kongers?
Definitely. I mean, there are some who are still working the industry. I mean, like this year you had the Hong Kong Film Award Best Director, new director nominee Thomas Lee Chi-Wai. So he lives in the UK. I actually realized he was 20 minutes away from me. So for example, he's still working in Asia, but I'm seeing plenty of opportunities for collaborating right here in Hong Kong. He's actually agreed to be my first AD on another feature I'm shooting. And the same is true for our line producers here in Hong Kong. In the UK, like Heidi Ng, like Cindy Wong, who I worked with on tape, who was also my AD. And again, we're looking at further opportunities for what we can shoot right here in the UK and in other regions. And the more, we have people sending me their CVs, and I'm always keeping that in mind, so that we can find further opportunities there. So absolutely, there are, I don't say countless, but there are several names who I believe, I am confident, will have plenty of work opportunities right here in the UK, despite the challenges which exist in the creative industry today.
Right. Yeah, I think with these kind of positive mentality, I do think that people would not struggle for too long, and I hope we can actually change the perception on Chinese people. That's like if you can see, we have an audience here, Johnny Chen. That lots of people still think Chinese only work in Chinese takeaway or laundromat. Yeah, so I hope we're no longer Chinese takeaway owners, and then we will see more Hong Kong producers, directors, and performance artists, singers that can shine on the international stage. So we are very honored to have you here today, and it really is a very meaningful sharing from you.
Thank you.
And you have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Have a great day too, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks.